Fact number 2. According to Islam, Jesus won a number of followers who were Muslims. Jesus didn't just preach and no one listened to him. Jesus preached and people believed his message and became Muslims. This is a simple fact about what Islam teaches. Let me show you that I'm correct here. In Surah 3:52 we read, when Jesus found unbelief on the part of the Jews, he said, "Who will be my helpers to the work of Allah?" The disciples said, "We are Allah's helpers. We believe in Allah, and do thou bear witness that we are Muslims." Here, Jesus' followers are saying, we're Muslims. Surah 5, verse 111. And behold, I inspired the disciples of Jesus to have faith in me and my messenger. They said, we have faith, and do thou bear witness that we bow to Allah as Muslims. So Jesus didn't just preach and he wasn't completely ignored by the people around him. He won followers in the first century who were Muslims, considered themselves Muslims, acted like Muslims, believed as Muslims, practiced as Muslims. Shouldn't be any dispute here. Fact number 3. In the Quran, Allah promises Jesus that his followers would be superior to unbelievers until the day of resurrection. Notice what this says. It doesn't say Jesus is going to win followers and they're immediately going to be corrupted by the Apostle Paul or something like that. It said these followers are going to be victorious and superior to the day of resurrection. Read Surah 3:55. Behold, Allah said, O Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself and clear thee of the falsehoods of those who blaspheme. I will make those who follow thee superior to those who reject faith to the day of resurrection. Then shall ye all return unto me, and I will judge between you of the matters wherein ye dispute. So, Jesus' followers, the people who are around him claiming that they are Muslims, would, according to Allah's promise, be victorious and superior to those who reject Jesus until the day of resurrection. Fact number 4. This will be a historical fact. If there were any first century Jews who converted to Islam at the preaching of Jesus, they didn't last very long. How do we know this? Well, we have no record of any first century followers of Jesus, or second century followers of Jesus, or third century followers of Jesus, or fourth or fifth century followers of Jesus who were Muslims, who believed what Muslims believe, who practice as Muslims believe. We have no record. So if they did exist, if you say, well, maybe they were all lost, maybe they all disappeared, something like that, fine, you can believe that if you want, but it's a simple fact that if they did exist, they disappeared rather quickly because we don't have a shred of evidence anywhere that they ever existed. We have no records of it. So all I'm saying here is, if they did exist, we don't have any records, so they must have disappeared pretty quickly.
Now in this debate, we're going to sift through the evidence to see if we can determine the origin of Muhammad's revelations. Did it come from Muhammad's own mind? Did his book come from darker sources? Or did his book come from God? These are the things we'll be looking at. Now, in many ways, Islam looks like a religion that came from the mind of a caravan trader in 7th century Arabia. Let me explain what I mean here. Muslims believe that the message of Islam came down from heaven, but we can find all of the building blocks of the religion in the teachings and practices of the people around Mecca during the time of Muhammad. There was Jewish monotheism right there in Arabia. There was the Talmud, all kinds of stories. Right there in Arabia. There were various teachings about Jesus and Mary that certain cults believed in. Things like Jesus speaking at birth, Jesus giving life to clay birds, Mary giving birth under a palm tree. Now, no historian on the planet believes that these narratives are authentic, but we know that various cults in Arabia were teaching these things, and they ended up in the Quran. The Sabaeans, who are mentioned in the Quran, prayed at all 5 of the times Muslims pray during their prayers. And let's not forget the pagans. The pagans, the polytheists, performed ablutions. They prayed facing Mecca. They took the pilgrimage to Mecca and circled the Kaaba. They kissed the black stone. They fasted during the month of Ramadan. These were all pagan practices of the polytheistic idol-worshipping Arabs. Now they're part of Islam. The point I'm trying to make here is that if you take Jewish monotheism, the teachings of certain heretical Christian cults, the prayer times of the Sabaeans, and the practices of the pagans, and you roll them all up into a ball, you get Islam. So this doesn't look like something that came down from heaven. It looked like something that came from 7th century Arabia. Now this is exactly the sort of religion we would expect to arise from a man claiming to be a prophet in Mecca. So right from the beginning, with a brief look at Islam, we have good reasons to think that it had a merely human origin in the mind of a man in 7th century Mecca. But we have many other reasons to believe that the true origin of Islam was the mind of Muhammad. For instance, Muhammad's self-serving revelations. Surah 4:3 says that Muslims can marry up to 4 women. But we know from history that Muhammad had a lot more than 4 wives. In Al-Tabari, we find that Muhammad had married 15 women and consummated his marriages with 13 women. And we read in Al-Bukhari that Muhammad had at least 9 wives at one time, maybe 11. So if the Quran is so clear that Muslims can only have up to 4 wives, why did Muhammad get more? Well, Muhammad also received Surah 33:50, which says that Muhammad, and only Muhammad, could get more. Now, as a Muslim, I understand that you would accept that, all right, Muhammad knows best. But to someone from outside the Muslim world, that looks awfully suspicious. If you're the one receiving the revelations, and those revelations give you special moral privileges, namely lots of sexual partners. And we can't forget things like Muhammad's marriage to the divorced wife of his own adopted son. A divorce that only happened because of Muhammad. Muhammad saw Zainab practically naked, and he desired her. Then Zainab found out that Muhammad was attracted to her, and she saw this as a chance to move up the ladder. Now, this sort of marriage wasn't allowed at the time, but Muhammad began receiving revelations justifying the entire ordeal. Here again, if you're a Muslim, you'd be inclined to say, well, God just wanted Muhammad to have this woman. So, the marriage broke up, married the wife of his own adopted son. What's the problem? But here again, to someone coming from outside the Muslim perspective, that looks awfully suspicious. That looks awfully suspicious. And there are some other aspects of Muhammad's teachings that seem all too human. Let's take a quick stroll through Sahih al-Bukhari, Islam's most trusted source on the life of Muhammad. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 3322. The Prophet said, "Angels do not enter a house which has either a dog or a picture in it." Number 3323. Allah's Messenger ordered that dogs should be killed. 3307. Narrated Sharif that the Prophet ordered her to kill house lizards. 3303. The Prophet said, "When you hear the crowing of a rooster, ask for Allah's blessing, for its crowing indicates that it has seen an angel. And when you hear the braying of a donkey, seek refuge with Allah from Satan, for its braying indicates that it has seen Satan." Number 3295, the Prophet said, "If any one of you rouses from sleep and performs the ablution, he should wash his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out thrice, because Satan has stayed in the upper part of his nose all night." Number 1144, a man was mentioned to the Prophet, and he was told that he kept on sleeping till morning and did not get up for prayer. The Prophet said, Satan urinated in his ears. You have to believe this as a Muslim. It's related to the unseen world.